What is up, everybody? It's me, J-Rod, and welcome back to another special episode of You Feel Me. I haven't done one of these type of videos in quite some time, but I'm very excited to be back because we're doing another fighting game roster wish list. Now, I have a couple of these on my channel. This goes all the way back to Injustice 2, to be completely honest, when I made a video asking for Beast Boy to be included in one of the combat packs for Injustice 2. That video is so old that, honestly, I don't even know if I want you to go back and check it out. But we've made a couple of these roster wish lists. We did one for Combat Pack 2 in Mortal Kombat 11. We did one for Injustice 3. We did one for the rumored Marvel vs. DC fighting game. We did one for Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl when it was first rumored, Multiversus when it was first rumored, and also the last one and most recent one. Last year we did one for Mortal Kombat 12, which we now know is Mortal Kombat 1. We have the full game, and honestly, I need to go back to that video to see how many characters that I asked for actually made it into the game, because I think it was a pretty good amount. But now we are back to talk about the roster wish list, the characters I would want to see in the upcoming rumored Avatar: The Last Airbender fighting game. Oh wait, did you not know that there was an Avatar: The Last Airbender fighting game? Yes, apparently there's one that is currently in the works. It's in its earliest stages of development, so honestly we have no idea what type of fighting game it's going to be, or any details, which characters are going to be featured. Nothing like that. We just know that it is currently in development. So while we probably won't see this project for at least a year, maybe more, it's still very exciting to have this because I did ask for an Avatar: The Last Airbender fighting game in one of these videos. I'm gonna have to go back and figure out which one. I've talked about recently how they should make an Avatar fighting game similar to like Dragon Ball FighterZ style, team-based, cool powers, cool bending combos would be pretty sick. But back a couple years ago, I did personally ask for a game like this because, I mean, how sick would it be? An Avatar: The Last Airbender fighting game. These are some insane characters. The martial arts in this show is amazing, and the bending and the other things added on are obviously really sick. So I would have loved to see this years ago. I asked for this before we ever got Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 1, so that when we did get Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl and it had a couple Avatar characters, that seemed like, you know, a nice compromise. But now I'm happy that we are finally getting the official one that only consists of Avatar characters and they can take the lore as far as they want. But I'll include the clip here of Maxim Entertainment, the game publisher or studio that actually confirmed that they are making this Avatar: The Last Airbender fighting game.
And finally, we are thrilled to announce that we have entered into a partnership with Paramount Consumer Products to develop a competitive multiplayer fighting game set in Avatar: The Last Airbender universe. This competitive fighting game is set to release into early access in 2025. We are thrilled to be bringing this project to life, and we will have so much more to share on this game in the future.
And when you check their history, they do have a bit of a gaming history, specifically with a few titles, including Them's Fighting Herds, which you probably heard me talk about before. It was essentially a My Little Pony fighting game that somebody had to make into its own thing because of copyright. But now it is a full-fledged fighting game. People play it competitively, and all the characters are four-legged, hooven, cloven animals. But they did some more serious fighting game. There's one that's a hybrid called God of Rock, I believe is the name of it, and it is a hybrid of a fighting game and a rhythm game. So it's basically like a 1v1 rhythm game where when you can keep up with the rhythm and when you do the prompts correctly, you deal damage to your opponent. I've never really checked this game out because I'm not big into rhythm games, but since it is a hybrid fighting game, I would be down to try it. And then most recently, a game that's not even officially out yet, they're also working on another hybrid fighting game, Diesel Legacy. I recently played this game in New Game Alert Round 6, and I can tell you it's a really, really fun game, and it's a really different take on a fighting game. It's basically a combination of a fighting game and a beat 'em up style game where it's a 2D fighting game that has multiple lanes. So you can go to the top lane, bottom lane, middle lane. I think there's 5 lanes total on the stage that I played as to move around your opponent. And because there is like a free-for-all mode or a 2v2 style mode. You can get your opponent in like sandwich scenarios where one opponent is in front of them and behind. And if you've ever played a beat 'em up game, you know it's not as easy as just being able to turn around and, you know, fight an opponent that's behind you if there's also an opponent in front of you. Also, you know, with a traditional 2D fighting game, it kind of auto corrects whatever opponent, you know, you're always facing your opponent for the most part in a 2D fighting game. So if your opponent does jump to the other side of you, you'll turn around and be able to respond to whatever they do on that other side. But either way, that's Diesel Legacy. I only played it a bit in the playtest, but it's a really fun game and it's a really different fighting game, which I enjoy. You know, I like a different take on a fighting game, but honestly, for this Avatar: The Last Airbender fighting game, I want something that's really standard, traditional. I want traditional 2D fighter. Of course, we need to be able to utilize the bending in as many ways as possible for these different characters.
Oh, so you're doing the bending.
But I also want it to be some sort of optional team-based game where you can do 1v1s or 2v2s or 3v3s, and then you have sort of tag combos where you can create team synergy going from one character to another. That's what I've wanted since the very beginning. I think it will show off, you know, the abilities, and it will show off the actual fighting style of bending the best way it can. Obviously, there was like the competitive bending in The Legend of Korra, which kind of, you know, uses some of those ideas. But I honestly wanted to go back to a really, like, you know, a fighting match where you can use any of your tools to try to take your opponent out by any means possible. But you use that team synergy to switch between them or to create combos that weren't normally possible. I think that would be really cool. As far as the art style, this is a personal thing. I want it to be a really bright, popping, and heavily saturated art style. And the thing that, you know, I point to most often is like a Dragon Ball FighterZ type art style. Now get that we're just talking about not art style. I don't want to change the look of the characters to look like Dragon Ball characters. I just mean the way that they color the characters, how bright and saturated all the colors are, and the amount of contrast, like the bold outlines on the characters, the way they stand out from the backgrounds and the foregrounds. I think that a traditional like anime-esque style there, but something super vibrant, and that will really help, you know. I don't know if it should be as fast as a Dragon Ball FighterZ, because that is a really fast-paced fighting style to match, you know, what goes on in the story. Where I want the Avatar: The Last Airbender fighting game, I want the fighting style to feel very natural, very realistic, almost like a 2D Tekken game or like a Street Fighter X Tekken. You know, I think Street Fighter X Tekken is actually a good reference for what I would want to see. It has that sort of tag character system where you can bring in multiple characters. It has that heavily saturated art style where the characters just pop on the screen. And yeah, and it also takes some elements of like a 3D fighting game like Tekken and puts them into a 2D fighting game like Street Fighter. And I think that that's a pretty good reference for what I kind of want to see for this Avatar: The Last Airbender fighting game. Obviously, I have no control over what actually gets made, so I'll be a bit happy with whatever we do get. I just don't want an arena fighter. Please don't make this an arena fighter. There's no reason for it to be an arena fighter. It doesn't need to be an arena fighter. I just want it to be a 2D fighter very bad. But either way, we got to take whatever we can get from this developer. This is going to be our first ever Avatar: The Last Airbender fighting game on the books officially. So, you know, beggars can't be choosers. We'll take what we can get. I've been waiting for this for years, so I'll just be excited to have something in addition to what we already have, which would be like Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, which has a bunch of Avatar characters in it already. Nazby 1 had Aang, Korra, and Toph. Nazby 2 has Aang, Korra, and Azula. And then also we have Iroh and Zuko coming soon via the DLC pass. I will definitely grab, if I don't grab the entire DLC pass, I would definitely grab Iroh and Zuko. I'll probably grab the whole thing because I kind of want to play Rocksteady as well. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. You're probably seeing some Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl gameplay in the background. so then the video doesn't get blocked for me using Avatar The Last Airbender clips like the last one. But without further ado, we're going to get into my roster wish list, and I have two lists, one for Avatar The Last Airbender characters and one for Legend of Korra characters, because I'm a huge fan of Legend of Korra, and if, you know, I think in the best case scenario, I will want both shows represented. So we're going to get into it right now, starting with Avatar The Last Airbender. And we're going to start with the most obvious characters. I mean, right off the bat, the Aang gang themselves, the main characters, Aang, Katara, Sokka, Toph, Zuko. Yeah, Zuko still counts as Aang gang. He was late addition to the Aang gang, but he is definitely a part of the Aang gang. I mean, all of these characters are kind of self-explanatory of why I want them in. Yeah, I think Sokka has a really cool chance for an interesting character design. I think he should have two stances, the sword stance and then his like club and boomerang stance, because I liked how Sokka had a really kind of just rough and rugged fighting style in the beginning, where, you know, he was just trying to survive, just making ends meet with that club and boomerang, and then his style became very refined once he added the sword to it. I would love to see both represented in his moveset. But the rest of them are kind of self-explanatory. You know, Aang being the main character of the franchise, yeah, he's got to be in there. He's got to be cool. I want the young, you know, Aang, but I want him to have access to all of his bending abilities, and because he's been able to do some really cool stuff with all the different elements. Katara, Toph, you know, everyone else is self-explanatory. I was a Toph main in Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 1, so I imagine I'll probably be a Toph main again, because Toph is just so sick. And then Zuko's another one where I do want a very general fighting and firebending type of Zuko, but also a blue spirit sword stance for Zuko would be cool. I don't know if I want to make that a separate character or just make that a move set. Maybe instead of an entire stance, he just has butterfly sword moves in his basic move set in addition to his hand-to-hand firebending moves. I think that would be pretty cool. Then next up is going to be Azula and her yang. Azula, Mai, and Ty Lee. I mean, these characters also are self-explanatory, really sick. And, you know, Mai and Ty Lee have such a cool non-bending sort of moveset, and we're going to have a lot of non-bending representatives on this list. So it's good to, you know, start with Sokka, Mai, and Ty Lee. Then next up, we gotta go Uncle Iroh. I mean, this would definitely be another one of my mains after Toph, just off of how much I love this character in the entire show. He's gonna be a basic Uncle Iroh with a general well-rounded moveset, but also we could add a skin that makes him super buff, like that time he broke out of prison. That would be also pretty cool. Then next up is gonna be Jet from the Freedom Fighters. While there are a bunch of Freedom Fighters, I think Jet is the only one that really matters. I mean, if you are someone who wants to play as Pipsqueak and the Duke or Smellerbee, let me know. But I think Jet is really the only one that really needs to get represented on this list. And then next up, for some more earth-bending reps, we've got Haru. I don't know if you guys probably remember Haru. He was an early earthbender in the series that ended up coming back way later in the series. He was trying to save his dad from a Fire Nation prison. And then Boomy, King Boomy has to get represented. What a goofball, what an interesting design, but I think he would make for a fun character. You always need that really like off their rocker, anything goes type of character. And then next up is gonna be Suki. How could I not include Suki, especially with all the non-bending reps? She's probably one of the fan favorites. So yeah, Suki's coming back, and I know if I'm asking for Suki, there's probably another character you want me to ask for, but we will get to that at the end of the list. Then next up is Long Fang of the Dai Li. This one could be so sick. I was just thinking about what his design could be. And there's a character in Diesel Legacy that I played as Naira. She's a grappler that has multiple arms, and she uses that in her movesets for her grapples and her combos, her rekkas, and all that. Long Fang could definitely be something similar. I would love for him to be a grappler, and he has multiple hands, and they're just all hands of other Dai Li agents that are moving in the background. That would be incredibly sick. Such a dope moveset idea, and hey, if you want to steal that from me, you guys got it for free. Next up is Hakoda. Hakoda, the father of Katara and Sokka, and a warrior in his own right. Yeah, I would love to see just another general non-bending, water-bending warrior with some experience, and how his moveset would differ from someone like Sokka, who got training with the sword and just has a bunch of different battle experience. And then next up is Hama, the bloodbender. She had to be represented. And honestly, I mean, come on, a character that can control their opponent. It's really cool to see what type of moves that creates. I'm thinking of some sort of like Ermac or Quan Chi style, why are you hitting yourself moves? But of course, they can go a lot deeper with Hama. And then Master Piandao. I mean, come on, we've talked about Sokka and his sword. So we got to have the guy who taught him as another non-bending sword character on the list with a lot of expertise. And then we need some more airbending reps. And honestly, in Avatar The Last Airbender, there weren't a lot because Aang was the last airbender. So I'm going to say Monkey Atso should make it into the roster as another airbender rep. How he could play is completely up to them. I mean, a traditional airbender with a lot of experience and training in airbending is something we never really got to see. So that would be interesting. I mean, at least not until Legend of Korra. And then obviously, well, first we'll say I want Sparky Boom Man to also make it into the roster. I had Combustion Man, I guess, is a more formal name, but Sparky Boom Man is it'll suffice. You guys know exactly who I'm talking about, right? And then we're gonna get into, I would also like to see some avatars on this list. Obviously, we already have Aang, and when we get to Korra, we're gonna have Korra, but I want some other reps, including Kyoshi, Avatar Kyoshi, Avatar Roku. I think they would be two really good Avatar reps for Avatar The Last Airbender. And I mean, come on, we've been waiting to see the brutality of Kyoshi, and also having a firebending rep in the game that's not, you know, a traditional Fire Nation character like we've seen in the series. Roku would also be really good. And there's just that sort of contrast between, like, he's a firebender. He was in the Fire Nation around when this conquest started and when this desire for the Fire Nation to expand and take over everything started. But he was also the Avatar, so he was a symbol of that unity of the different nations. So I'm sure there's some sort of like contrast, dichotomy, and a lot of interesting dramatic moments in his lore. We got some benders, we got some non-benders, we got some avatars. We also need some non-human reps in this roster wish list. So obviously we're going to start off with Appa. If any non-human is making it in, Appa is got to be the first one. He's the main guy, and I would love to play as Appa. I just love when fighting games include a character that's like, maybe he shouldn't be there. And honestly, if they can put a bear in Tekken, they can put a flying bison into this Avatar The Last Airbender fighting game. I would also love to see Wan Shi Tong, the ancient wise spirit of the library, the owl spirit, as he's represented in Avatar The Last Airbender. I have no idea what type of moves he would have, but I mean, come on. And I think the Avatar The Last Airbender game should definitely do some animals in their roster, considering that animals were the first benders, according to the lore. And I think, oh, then there's one more for the Avatar The Last Airbender side of the roster, but I'm going to include June the bounty hunter, and her shrew monster thingy, Nyla. Yeah, so June and Nyla I would also include. That's another one that could be a JoJo's reference because they do mounted characters riding on horses that have a mounted and unmounted moveset. I think June could have something a lot similar. But that's it for the Avatar The Last Airbender side. So now we're going to move on to the Legend of Korra characters that I would want to see in an Avatar fighting game. So starting off similarly, we need the main gang. We need the main characters, the protagonists, starting with Korra, Asami, Mako, and Bolin. We need those four. I mean, that's the Korra gang. That is the opposite of the Aang gang in Avatar The Last Airbender. And we need all of them in there, especially because they all bring something different to the roster. We got a more modern day firebender in Mako. We got Bolin, and a really cool earthbender that actually taps into lava bending. And then we got Asami, who is a representative for the non-benders. While there is a potential to put her in a mech suit, I would have her do a hand-to-hand fighting stance with the little gauntlet, the electric glove she got. Because there's another character I want to put into a mech suit, but we'll get to that later. So next up, we're going to have Tenzin, Aang's son, and the most trained airbender in this new Legend of Korra timeline. Tenzin also did some really cool like martial arts and airbending feats in the show, so I'd love to see him adapted into the game. And Lin Beifong, we all know this is Toph's daughter, and she leads the new like police force that metal bends and use these whips. Lin would probably be another one of my mains because she could play just like Takeda in MKX. We still have yet to see Takeda in MK1, but that should be coming later this year, so who knows. But yeah, Lin would definitely be the Takeda of this game, and I would definitely have to play her. As well as her sister Suyin, which is another metal bender, but they use metal bending a bit differently in Suyin's city. So I think that would be cool to have two metal benders that both use a completely different moveset. Suyin with like a metal armor, and then Lin with the more formal police whips. And then next up, we know Korra has quite a rogues gallery of villains, so I would love to bring all of those villains into it. Amon, Zahir, Unalaq, and Kuvira. Also some more representation for the Red Lotus a little bit later. Then next up is Tonraq. Tonraq is Korra's dad, and he's the leader of the Water Tribe in Korra's timeline. I think it would be really cool to get another character like Hakoda, but a modern waterbending chief. And also Tonraq does a lot of actually like fighting and defending his people in The Legend of Korra, specifically in Unalaq's season, which was season 2, I think, if I remember correctly. And then, like I said, we're gonna have more of the Red Lotus represented on this list. Why not the entire Red Lotus? We've got Ghazan, Pli, and Minghua. So yeah, the entire Red Lotus could be represented. Yeah, but the Red Lotus is like an evil secret society in Legend of Korra that I believe their goal was to find the Avatar and take away the Avatar's bending, or was it to just kill the Avatar? So I don't actually remember. Or destroy the bloodline of the Avatar in some way. But those characters are going to be Minghua, who's a waterbender with no arms, who's mastered the water arm technique. There's Pli, who is a female combustion bender. I guess that's what they're called. There's Ghazan, who is a earthbender that knows how to lava bend. He actually kind of indirectly teaches that to Bolin. And obviously Zahir, who was already mentioned, he was a non-bender at the time, but he is now an airbender. So he's the only evil airbender in the canon, which I think makes him pretty unique, and we gotta have him represented for sure. All right, next up, I'm actually not too sure about these two characters, but I think there should be some representation for Rava and Vaatu, the incarnation of light and dark that eventually becomes the Avatar. I want to see them represented because they are important to the Avatar lore, but also I have no idea how they would play. And they're basically just like flying kites. I don't know how two flying kites will work in a fighting game, but if you can make it work, then go ahead and please, please throw them in there. So next up is going to be Opal, who is actually a descendant of Toph, a member of the Beifong family, who ended up getting airbending in the second coming of the airbenders during Legend of Korra. So I think Opal would be a pretty cool character. Also Milo, representing the young airbenders. And also I liked the idea of putting a kid into a fighting game that just has a completely different hitbox, and like you can't hit them with highs, or they just easily crouch under and low profile your moves. I think Milo would be a fun choice for a goofy kid character to make the game. And also, in addition to Milo, I think we should also get Ikki, who is another one of Tenzin's kids, the original airbenders in the series. So yeah, we do need some reps for the airbenders, so Opal and Ikki can definitely round us out in that sense. And then, like I said, I had a character that I think I want to put in a mech suit, and so that's going to be Varrick. If you don't know Varrick, he's a comical character, definitely there just for the laughs, the humor, the plot device. But there was a section where Varrick actually joined the fight. He hopped in a mech suit, he joined the fight against Kuvira, and he wasn't just a useless gag character. So I think we could put Varrick into the game in a mech suit, and also maybe add his assistant Julie, because he kind of is lost without her. Okay, and then there's one more Avatar that I want represented on the roster, and One is a good description of him because it's Avatar Wan, the first Avatar. I would love to see him in this game somehow. I think that it was really cool how they did an alternate art style for the animation when they did Avatar Wan's segment, making it look more like watercolors, hand-drawn, hand-painted. So it'd be so cool if he actually had a different art style in the game. Maybe I'm asking for too much, but if we could just get Wan, however they decide to adapt him, I would be very grateful because that's a really interesting character. And then I think that's it. Besides, we gotta have some non-humans on this side of the roster as well. So we're gonna go with Naga, who is the Avatar's companion, her animal companion in this one, who's a polar bear dog, I guess is the technical term. Then there is Fang, who is Avatar Roku's dragon. I think there should be a dragon on the roster, so why not go with him? And I think that actually rounds out the entire roster. I think that's both sides, the Avatar The Last Airbender characters and the Legend of Korra characters. But if I missed anybody that you guys want in an Avatar The Last Airbender fighting game, be sure to let me know down in the comments. It doesn't matter if they are super random or, you know, their chances are super low of even making it in. Even if they're not an Avatar character, who do you guys think we should have in this as a guest character? I have been thinking about it, and while I didn't come to any conclusions, I think that one universe they could look for guest characters would definitely be The Dragon Prince on Netflix, which is another show made by one of the Avatar The Last Airbender creators, Aaron Ehasz, I believe, if I remember correctly. It's a completely different universe. It's a little bit more high fantasy, but I think there are a lot of characters that could cross over. Like, I think there are two characters that could definitely cross over would be Rayla and Callum, who are two of the main characters. And then while we're doing non-human characters, I mean, have Zim the dragon also cross over and add another dragon to the roster. I think that would be pretty good for guests. But if you have any better ideas for who could make it as a guest character, definitely feel free to include that in the comments. And honestly, it doesn't matter how likely they are to make it in, just tell me who you're wishing for. I mean, I could have gone with like Ben 10 and Generator Rex for guest characters, but I did already ask for them as guest characters in Injustice 3, so we shall just have to see. But guys, once again, let me know what characters you would want to see in an Avatar The Last Airbender fighting game, and also what type of mechanics, what type of style and game style would you want to see for this game. And also, you know, join me in saying no arena fighter. We want this to be a traditional 2D fighting game, not an arena fighter. But that's going to be it for this one, guys. So tell me how you felt about this one. Tell me if you feel me, and I'll see you guys next time in another new one. Peace out. Life. Balance.
I see fire.
I see fire. That's her. I could be completely wrong. This could be a misdirection of some sort. But the girl sees fire. Yeah, that has to be her, right? Oh man, that's such a Sith thing to say, and I'm wondering what the response, the